Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another podcast episode of California NEM 3.0 Sales and Discussions. I'm Jack Walker, and I am freshly back from RE+. And man, I cannot explain enough to you about how much innovation and excitement in the industry I saw at RE+. Today, I've got Rob Schwarzinger joining us from Pointguard Energy Systems, and one of the most exciting products that I saw at RE+ was the Pointguard Energy and energy management systems. Rob, do me a favor, bud. Jump in here. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about the company. I didn't even know that I had a sort of secret connection to you when I was talking to the folks in the booth, and only to find out later that your wife and I were actually co-workers. She was a mentor of mine when I was working for Sun Edison years and years and years ago. But to find out that we had that sort of connection made this sort of podcast opportunity a lot easier for everybody. Rob, jump in. Tell us a little bit about it.
Sounds good, Jack. Thank you so much for having me on. Totally excited to be on. And yeah, the solar industry is still a small world. Everybody knows everybody, and we're only like one or two links away from each other. So it's great to meet you through my wife. Again, I'm Rob Schwarzinger. I'm the CEO of Pointguard Energy, and I'm leading the business here. I've been in the PV industry since 2005, and I have ended up at this very, very innovative company who is leading the way in the solar and battery space.
Awesome, Rob. Thank you so much for that. When I walked around RE+, I must have stopped at, I don't know, 150 different booths because there was something that was new, something that was innovative, something had caught in my eye. And first and foremost, let me start by saying your company's product and projects that they're working on were number one in my eye. By far and away, this concept of a centralized inverter that we're going to get into and talk about a little bit deeper, sort of being the hub for everything home management. I think that's super smart. Another one of the products that I saw that absolutely blew me away, and you actually have a piece of the same kind of technology going on, was the Schneider Electric Pulse main panel, which is really cool because it's this giant it's this giant main panel for home upgrades, for main panel electrical upgrades, where homeowners not only sort of gain consumption monitoring, but they also gain remote control via Bluetooth. And you actually have a product called Point Load Hub, which does the exact same kinds of things without actually having to replace the main panel. So I think that's super smart. And then, quite honestly, the number of EV charging stations absolutely blew me away. And then, as I learned more and more about everybody else's product, one of the things that brought me back to sort of wanting to have this conversation was Pointguard's ability to not only have an EV charging station, but I believe the words that I heard were early in 2024, we're going to sort of launch bi-directional, which makes the battery situation here even better. I think that when we talk about California and NEM 3.0, in order to achieve successful sales today, inside of the big three utility organizations, the PG&Es, the SCEs, and the San Diego Gas and Electrics, the only real way to achieve success is to, one, have a homeowner home all day and only use power from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, or take that power and put it into some sort of device that can be discharged later, like a battery. And one of the things that I learned about Pointguard when I was in the booth was they're taking this concept of using an inverter across multiple different planes, but it's sort of a centralized inverter. So the same inverter that's actually going to convert your solar into electric power is the same inverter that's going to convert maybe even home electricity into DC battery power, or do the reverse and start. And again, for those of you who don't know, the reverse of taking DC and turning it to AC through an inverter. The inverse of that, or the reverse opposite of that, is actually rectifying, taking DC power and changing it to AC power. That's your lesson from Uncle Jack today. If you did not know that, when you take DC and you convert it to AC, that is called rectification. And I don't want to hear any jokes about damn near killed them or any of that other stuff. Here's the thing. Pointguard is taking this concept of a centralized inverter. They're stacking batteries with it. They're using it to convert your solar to power. And I want to give Rob the opportunity from his level in the organization to sort of talk about the concept, talk about how it comes to light, and sort of tell us where they are today. How do we go about getting the product?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So you've done your homework. Thank you for that great intro. And you nailed the architecture, right? It is a stackable modular system where the energy controller or the inversion stage is kind of the brains of the operation, and that's always the top module. You see the picture here on the left. It's the top module that is that we call the energy controller, and that's the solar inverter and the battery PCS together. We are able to stack different battery modules on top of each other to make any size battery system that you like. And so you have a bunch of flexibility here. We've chosen a DC architecture, right? So anything that happens in the stack and in Pointguard Home that is not going towards the home happens in DC, right? So we can bring solar down from the roof in native DC electricity form, and we can charge the batteries without having to convert into AC and then back to DC. With our optional DC charger that we're launching in just a few months, that's a bidirectional DC EV charger. We can then also charge a car straight from DC PV electricity without having to go through a conversion step, right? All of the devices in the stack share a common DC bus, and so they're all connected on the DC side, and that's why we can drive these big advantages in efficiency with the DC architecture, because we are circumventing the AC conversion and then back into DC, like all of the AC coupled systems have to do, right? They're
Sure.
losing several points of efficiency because they're bringing AC electricity down from the roof, having to convert back into DC, and then they're charging a car or a battery with that loss, right? And we don't have that loss.
Hey, Rob, let me jump in here real quick. So for simplistic reasons, right? If I'm a sales rep and someone says to me, hey, man, like, why would you want to sell me Pointguard for my home? If I'm that sales rep, man, the very first thing I'm saying is, hey, I'm getting rid of all of the other names that make up a system today. We're no longer Frankensteining this optimizer with this invert. So again, I don't want to use names here, but there's a Togo optimizer, and there's a inverter, and there's an RF panel. Like, you've got all of these different components, right? Here, you're going to have the components on the roof that make up your roof PV system. I don't care. Choose the very best one you want. Choose REC. Choose, I don't know, Silverline. Pick whichever panel you're most comfortable with. That's great. Right. Once you bring that thing down off the roof, everything else is going to be eliminated. Sure, you could optimize it if you want to. That's completely up to you. If you live in the desert and you don't have any trees, why would you ever want to or need to do that? You don't. So there's no need for that. You live in the coast and you got some big trees, or you live up in the forest and you got some big trees. Sure, maybe you do want to optimize it. But once you bring it off the roof, I don't have to have that box on the wall that does the conversion. It's going to go straight into the Pointguard inverter system, which may be in the garage, it may be outside, and it's going to create your DC to AC connection for you.
That's right. So it's one fully integrated system from one manufacturer, which is Pointguard, where we're actually the world's first 5-in-1 home energy management system, right? So it combines the BMS, the solar inverter, the battery PCS, the battery modules, and an EV charger, and in this case, a DC charger, which is part of the Pointguard home stack. So we have created an all-in-one, fully integrated, flexible solution where you don't have to have all these different components from different manufacturers. And we're saving wall space by making it a stackable solution where every component stacks onto each other, rather than having to mount all these different batteries on the wall or a DC charger or those kinds of components or an inverter, right? So it saves a ton of wall space. It looks very stylish and modern, so it fits into the modern lifestyle of today's homeowners. It takes up a very, very small footprint, and it gives you the flexibility to do a lot of different sizes for your homes. So for installers, it's extremely easy to use. You just stack up the size that you need, and that's been designed, and that benefits the home. And you repeat that with every other home in different configurations with one manufacturer, product from one manufacturer, fully integrated, super easy, super fast.
Yeah, no, Rob, I 100% agree. I think it's one of the cleanest looking systems that you're going to find, without having a separate inverter, without having a separate combiner, without having a separate, all of these things, right? We've got multi-power point tracking inside of the top unit of this particular one that you're looking at. You've got DC storage all below that. It's all contained in one, and it's ran by a smooth operating app that anybody, including a homeowner, can use. Now, before we go into the next step, one of the things that's the biggest concern as we talk about California NEM 3.0 and the sales of not just your products, but how are they selling the products in the home? One of the biggest concerns is, hey man, like I need to know as a sales rep that Pointguard completely understands when to sell my power back to the grid. How are we managing sort of the optimization of the power that's in the battery and when the homeowner should sell back to the grid? Where's that programming coming from?
So we have integrated AI algorithms into the solution in actually several different ways. One is in terms of the energy usage of the home and what the system does to benefit the homeowner to the maximum degree. And so we are taking different inputs, like our system learns the electricity consumption behavior of the homeowner, for example. It takes weather data and it takes utility information and puts all that together and makes decisions about how to use the power in the wisest way or in the most financially beneficial way for the homeowner. So we're not quite done with that capability. We're almost done with that capability, but the system will learn when it is beneficial to inject power into the grid, because the utility is paying more for that power, and then the system can actually make that decision and take care of that for the homeowner and basically help the homeowner make money and save as much as they possibly can.
That's awesome. And tied directly to that, right? You know, there are published rate schedules, and the rate schedules definitely change every hour of every day. And they definitely change every month from month to month. So it's super important that, you know, when a sales rep is out selling the product and he's convinced the homeowner that yes, solar is the way that you want to go, and yes, Pointguard is the way that you want to sort of manage that power once you get it off the roof. The very best thing that we can do in the month of September, and by the way, we just got out of the very best month to sell solar back, right? Because between the hours of like, I think it's 5 and 8 o'clock at night, you have this golden opportunity to completely discharge your battery, and no one will care if you lost power in the middle of the night because they just made like $73 on the day discharging their battery. So like, depending on the size of your battery, of course, that number is going to fluctuate. But the point here is that not only will the system know it, but the system will learn it over time as things change. One of the other things that I learned in the booth, Rob, was that the system definitely takes in AI into account, and it uses the sort of load hub manager to sort of dictate what's going to happen and when, and it does AI for this. So for instance, if I was explained this correctly, and verify for me in case I get it wrong, right? Because I don't want to get it wrong. But here's what I was led to believe, and here's what I concluded from that sort of conversation. If your home actually loses power and you have a Pointguard system and you have battery backup and you have this Pointguard load management hub, one of the things that it's going to know over time is that, hey, when you lose grid power, we are automatically going to turn off these things, or we're going to ask you to turn off these things automatically because it's what you've done in the past. And I'll give you an example. The way it was served to me, Rob, was if I had my my pool and my jacuzzi come on every day at, say, noon, and and we had lost grid power, the first couple of times I'm going to go into the system and I'm actually going to turn off my pool and my jacuzzi because I don't want them using power that I don't have. It's power that's sitting in my battery, and I'd rather save that power for use in the home. Things like my refrigerator, my freezer, maybe some TVs, and certainly some Wi-Fi and garage access, right? When the first couple of times I do that, the system is actually learning that that's what I do. I turn off the jacuzzi, I turn off the spa, or I turn off the pool. And then over time, it says, hey, it looks like we've lost power. You'll actually get an alert that says, hey, it looks like we've lost power. Do you want me to turn off the pool and the jacuzzi? And when it does those things, that sort of makes it super handy for homeowners to go, oh, not only did I lose power, but it's prompting me to sort of take me through the steps of what to do next.
That's exactly right. So you know, we could talk about the AI components of the solution for hours, right? And really the sky's the limit. And so yes, we have created an AI core that learns the behavior of the homeowner, right, in terms of electricity, and it will make certain suggestions in different situations, right? You've described one of the situations. Another situation might be that it looks at the last month's energy uses of the homeowner, and the homeowner is just using too much between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m., right, when the utility rates are super high. It will flag that and alert the homeowner to say, dear whatever your name is, either push some of your loads into deeper into the evening after 10 p.m. or upgrade your battery system with another battery module. Both are going to give you a better ROI rather than paying the utility, right? So both would be beneficial for you. And so it will do things like that, where it gives suggestions to the homeowner. We also have a so this is when the system runs in a static mode, like time of use mode, or right. These are static modes where what's programmed into the system is you discharge when the electricity rate is high, and you charge when the electricity is low, or when there's solar. I would call that a static mode. We have a mode called Pointguard AI mode, right? And the system will actually make decisions for the homeowner to automatically do all of these things, right? So it will discharge at certain times. It will discharge into the grid at certain times, and it's actually a bigger money saver than a static TOU type of mode, right? Because it takes these different data points into consideration. It does some data crunching, and the strategy which it uses to service the home's load profile is smarter than a static operating mode.
Got it. That's awesome. Hey, Rob, I'm going to edit this part out, but we're going to do a quick sort of re-intro here real quick.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. It's Jack Walker with California NEM 3.0 Sales and Discussions. I'm joined today by Rob Schwarzinger from Pointguard Energy Systems. And we're talking a little bit more about the Pointguard Energy System 5-in-1 battery, which has this centralized inverter that does a fabulous job of not only converting your solar power on your roof to AC, but it also does a wonderful job at sort of managing your DC power, regardless of where it's coming from. The DC power might be coming from your Pointguard battery system, but it also might be coming from your EV charger. And that's what we're going to sort of touch on next. Lots of cars in California today are going to the electric world. The EV charger is becoming a huge focal point. I saw a recent, Rob, I think you're going to be amazed about this, but I saw a recent sort of article that talked about the amount of EV chargers needed nationwide over the next 7 years. And they said the number was 32 million.
Wow, that's a huge number.
Now, I don't know if that's an accurate number or not. It was an article, and it talked about everything from side of the freeway usage to rest stops to shopping malls to, you know, parking garages. Like, it talked about all of these things, but it did say the single biggest access point would be residential homes over the next 7 years. And they estimate that number to be at 24 million. Now, I don't know if the number's true or not. I don't care if the number's true or not. And the reason I say it that way is because I know that California has a mandate that they are going to have 50% of their vehicles on the road by 2032 or something like that to be EV chargers. And when I look around California, I happen to be in Huntington Beach today. When I look around, I don't see a whole heck of a lot of EV chargers outside of the normal residences. So what happens when you go to the sports bar to watch a football game? What happens when you go to the salon to get your hair and nails did? What happens when you go to the yoga studio or the fitness center and you need to get your car plugged in? Right now, those things don't exactly exist, or if they do exist, they're definitely in the minority. And this report is suggesting, hey man, we need to have a much, much bigger presence with that. The reason I bring that to the front side of this conversation is Pointguard has yet another component that they're sort of launching with the Pointguard home management system, and that is this sort of EV charging station. Now, I know today that the EV charger is not necessarily bi-directional, but when it becomes bi-directional in early 24, I think the most important part here is not only do you have your 25 or 35 or 45 kilowatt hour stack of batteries in your home for residential protection, but now you have your vehicle that you can plug in, and it might add 50 or 80 kilowatts to that actual stack. And so if you start thinking about the mathematical equation of what happens in September when I try to not only discharge my 25 hours of kilowatt batteries, but now I'm going to discharge my 80 kilowatt hours of vehicle in that window where they have the very, very high buyback rates, you might actually turn your EV charging station into a cash generation system.
That's right. I mean, it's the possibilities are pretty endless here with the EV revolution and the electrification of not only the home but also transportation, right? And they all kind of come together in a central point in the home. And so an EV charger then becomes another entry point into this residential home energy management system. And so, yes, you're right. With all this intelligence behind our home energy management system, the homeowner really has all the choice in the world to utilize not only his or her residential battery system, but also the EV that's outside in those cases where the utility might be paying a lot more for the kilowatt hour, right? So there are many choices, and I think that we have a ways to get to that point where we can explain all of these choices to the homeowner in a succinct way that's understandable and easy. But yes, so we have made the entrance into this space with our AC charger that's launching at the same time as our Pointguard home system, so the solar and battery system. And this is part of the ecosystem, so we can already add some intelligence for EV charging with this AC charger. So for example, we can charge the car with only PV power, or we can prioritize PV power charging, right? So the grid gives a little bit of help, but mostly it's PV power. In the case of a blackout, when the grid goes down, the system will automatically throttle EV charging. If you have to charge your EV in a blackout, we will automatically throttle the charging so that the home energy management system doesn't get overloaded if there's too much load being drawn from the home, right?
Right.
So there's a major intelligence in this AC charger as well, because it's part of the ecosystem and it communicates with the entire system. So that's the start into the EV charging world, together with our home energy stack, Pointguard Home. And here we can do already all three major standards, right? So the CHAdeMO standard, CCS1 standard, and also the NACS standard, which is the Tesla standard. We can today, when the product launches, we comply to all of those standards, and we can charge your Tesla with our charger.
Yeah. So, Rob, I'm going to double back here for just a second, right? One of the fabulous things about the solar industry, and I'm sure it's not just our industry. I'm sure regardless of what industry you're in, there's a certain amount of an acronyms that means something to somebody. And you just touched on a couple of them that have zero meaning to salespeople because they just don't know typically. But the most important one that I heard was the NACS, which is the North American Charging Standard. North American Charging Standard, which basically means we're going to use that triangular plug that has the 3 outlets in it, and we're going to use that to get into vehicles. And that's my understanding of the North American Charging System or Charging Standard. And then obviously there's a couple of other charging standards that we also support.
Yes. So the way I understand it is that NACS only Tesla uses, and then the CHAdeMO standard and the CCS1 and CCS2 standards are used by all of the other car manufacturers. Now, there have been some announcements from some of the large German car manufacturers and others that they will switch to the NACS standard, and so that's probably happening in 2027, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a thing that's becoming more and more sort of common. Like, it's the number one question that I get asked, not just by sales reps, but even by homeowners. Like, hey man, which EV charger should I get? And how do I know that I'm getting the right one that'll fit my car in the future? And again, there's adapters for all of these things. It's not a whole lot of worrying here. The first part is to make sure that you actually have the charging port so that you can use these things when you do get your electric vehicle, if you don't already have one. If you already have one, you already know the charging situation for that particular vehicle.
Exactly.
All right. So here's
and then go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to go to the second step here with the EV charging. So you're seeing the AC charger there that we're launching with, and then as you said, in the early part of 2024, we are launching our bi-directional DC EV charger. And that charger is actually a module in our Pointguard Home system, in the Pointguard Home stack. It will be right underneath the energy controller. And with that system, it's a very interesting design. It's a very interesting system because we have a 12.5 and a 25 kilowatt version, right? So let's talk about the 25 kilowatt version. It's oversized to higher than your solar output or your battery output, or even what the grid can contribute, because you can use all 3 power sources at once. So you can bring in power from the grid. Our energy controller will convert that power, that AC power, into DC. And say you're using an 11.4 kilowatt inverter, right? So 11.4 kilowatt will be contributed from the grid. If you're PV system is working, if it's light out, right? If it's daylight, say your PV system is contributing 6 kilowatts, and then say your batteries are contributing 5 kilowatts, right? Then all of a sudden you are this is all additive, and you can use all of that power to charge your EV, right? So it's very fast and very focused. So in an emergency, for example, if you have to charge your EV very quickly, you can utilize a lot more of that capacity. And that's why we oversize the system, because you can draw from 3 energy sources at once, and they're additive, right? And that's also totally new, totally unique. There's not many DC bidirectional chargers out there at this point.
No, there's not.
I think there's 2, right? But we have taken it to the next step and integrated that charger into our system, so we can drive those kinds of advantages.
Yep. The sale of solar is becoming very, very complex. And the way solar is going to be sold is by keeping it very, very simple.
Exactly.
And the number one sort of coaching that I always sort of bring to salespeople, sales managers, executives of sales teams, it's this. It doesn't matter what NEM agreement you're on. What it looked like in the past is gone. What you're working with today is a homeowner that wants to go solar, and they want to understand why. The reason we're there is to help them understand the why and to show them the financing behind it. If we do those 2 things and those 2 things only, we don't ever have to have a conversation about NEM 1 or NEM 2 or NEM 2.5, exactly. NEM 3.0. If you find yourself as a sales rep having a conversation that begins with, well, now today under NEM, we've got to do these things, you're literally setting yourself up to fail, because those are not very convincing words that solar is going to be for you, the homeowner, when in fact, solar is for every homeowner. There's not a homeowner that would not benefit from solar, and I don't care who the customer is. Well, I take that back. The guy in the cabin up surrounded by 700-foot giant redwoods might not benefit from solar. Okay, I get it. Someone's going to put something in the comments. It's going to come up. All right, I take it back. Almost everybody is a good fit for solar. And even if they're not using that power when it's generated, they can do super smart things like put it into a Pointguard energy management system and let it do the work for them, because it uses AI. It has these great features. And quite honestly, they can see what's actually going on. Rob, talk a little bit about the monitoring system. Talk a little bit about the app. Tell us what the app does for a homeowner. Tell us how a homeowner is going to have sort of at their fingertips the ability to control what's going on.
Yeah, great. So first of all, the app. So we have one single app. It's the same app for the installer, and it's the same app for the homeowner. With an installer login, a different portion of the app becomes active, and that portion of the app is, of course, not active for the homeowner. However, you have a bunch of functionality in the app. So obviously, you see everything that your solar is doing and that your battery is doing. We have added the EV, of course, right? So you can see the power flow that might be going to the EV or the batteries. So that's a given. That's a standard feature on the homepage of the app. Because we have you mentioned earlier the load hub, the Pointguard load hub, which is our gateway, right? It contains a automatic transfer switch, and it has a number of controllable loads that can be turned on or off through the app, right? So in a situation where the power is off, where the grid is down, the homeowner can actually go into the app and turn off some of the controllable loads if they want to make their battery last long, right? So you have that functionality. The installer, and this is where we're coming to the AI portion. The AI core, or the AI program, acts as a post-sales technical support engineer. for the installer. So if the installer has a question during setup, during commissioning, or during building the system, the installer can ask the app by voice, and the AI app will search our database and put together an answer and come back to the installer to answer the question that he or she asked. Right. So, for example, the installer might ask, why is the front light blinking blue? Right. The app will answer that question with the appropriate answer. I forgot how to install the DC EV charger. Can you show me how to install it? The app will basically search our database, either find an appropriate video, or come back with a step-by-step instruction set to help the installer install that that component. Also with troubleshooting, it will help with troubleshooting. So the spirit of this is that we want to empower the installer to be able to get all of his or her questions answered on site, so that the install can be completed as quickly as possible, and they don't have to jump on the phone and wait for however long, right? You have to wait for an actual person, a post-sales technical support engineer, to help answer that question, right? We will still have those situations where the AI will not be able to help, and we have a post-sales technical support team, but it's a level 3 technical support team that is standing by to help installers answer those questions. But the intention is for 90% of the questions to be answered on site, 24/7, without having to pick up the phone, right?
That's
so
awesome.
that's number one. Number two, the homeowner will also be able to interact with the system and ask certain questions. What's my what's my state of charge, and how long will it take to get to 100%, right? And the system will calculate, and it will take into consideration the weather for insulation, so how much the PV system will produce, and answer the question based on those data points. It also becomes a controller of sorts of the different stacks, or of the different components in the stack, or of different features and functionality. You can change the light strip program, for example, with the app. Giving the app an instruction to, hey, change the light program to power flow, for example, right? And they'll change that. So you can do certain things and control the system in certain ways with the app by just talking to the app, and the AI functionality will do the rest, right? So this is how we have included AI into the app for the benefit not only of the installer, but also for the homeowner. I do want to make one disclaimer to the installers. So this system is a learning system, right? So it's not going to be perfect from day one. We have created the system, and it's ready to go. It's ready to learn, and it has a bunch of functionality and features packed into it. But there will be times that it might answer a question in a nonsensical way, or it'll answer another question, right? In those cases, we ask for your help to perfect the system, and there's a button in our app that you can press, that you can push, that if the AI system answers a question incorrectly, you can push that button, and it will go directly into our R&D department, into the AI department, and they will make sure that question will be answered correctly the next time. So we will rely on our installers' help to perfect the system over time, right? Because it's a learning system. It will not be 100% there on day one, but we hope it will be there very quickly thereafter.
That's awesome. Hey, Rob, you didn't touch on it, or if you did, I missed it. And if I missed it, I apologize. Commissioning this system. Lots of times you hear out in the marketplace, oh, this brand takes this long and this brand takes this long. And everybody, in all honesty, everybody is getting better. I've seen commissioning times for Florence come down. I've seen commissioning times for Unphase get a lot better. Like lots and lots of companies are getting better at their commissioning times. Do you know what the commissioning time is for your system?
Yes. So with an average, let's assume you have an average internet connection, right? So it's not dial-up speeds, but it's an average internet connection. So we have commissioning down to 5 minutes. And we have 150 plus systems in the field where the installers are confirming that that's actually the time that they're spending commissioning the system. There's a couple of reasons why we've been able to get it down to a very, very fast speed, like 5 minutes. And that's number one. We don't rely on RS-485 as our communications protocol. Right now, the standard out there with connecting all these different components is RS-485. And that's actually quite a slow communications protocol. We are because we have a stack design and we have integrated a self-guiding pin connector design into each module. So when you stack one module onto the next, you're also automatically making the connection both on the power side and the data side, right? So there's no additional field wiring at all to build a stack. And so because we have the stack design, we're using a communications protocol that's up to 1,000 times faster than RS-485. And so when you're communicating and when you're upgrading software, right, firmware, which is one of the steps in the commissioning process that takes 2 minutes or less, just the software update, we can drive much faster speeds throughout the entire system than anybody else out there. And that's part of the reason why we've been able to get the commissioning down to 5 minutes. It's also a bi-directional communication. And because we have built-in sensors into each of the components, we are automating a step. So for example, we are automating the step of recognizing every component in the system, right? So this happens automatically. I think it's a second step in the commissioning process where the system recognizes each component that's in the stack. It displays it for the installer, and it shows it on the app for the installer's confirmation. And then it goes into the automatic software update that takes no more than 2 minutes. So altogether, it's a 5-minute procedure that's very fast, very simple. The system at my house, for example, we commission in 4 minutes. And so we have tons of real-world experience with this already, and we're leading the industry in this area as well.
Perfect. He is Rob Schwarzinger, the CEO of Pointguard Energy. I'm Jack Walker from California, NEM 3.0 Sales and Discussions. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. What a great product. I can't express to you enough how excited I am for what you guys are going to do in the market. Centralized inverters are absolutely the thing that is going to be the future, because you only need it in one spot. You bring everything together, you put 5 other components with it, and you give homeowners the ability to control this thing. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Pointguard.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it.